If Rene Descartes were writing today, his famous quote would be, "I gram, therefore I am." In 2016, over 1,000 selfies were posted to Instagram every 10 seconds. The line between image of self and self-image is disappearing quickly, challenging notions of self, experience, and memory. The average person born after 1980 will take 25,000 selfies in her lifetime. Among those 18 to 24, every third photo taken is a selfie. The experts at Cosmo found that most of us need up to 5 shots to find a post-worthy photo. 25% of women edit their photos for 5 minutes before posting. The iPhone X takes selfies to the next level, portrait photography with a hint of Photoshop. What happens when the subject and object are one and the same? Is the act of self-discovery or narcissism? We can no longer trust a gaze that we can't control. Self-portrait photography isn't new. Illinois street photographer Vivian Dorothy Mayer sought to capture her own photographer's gaze in action, exploring how it framed and reimagined her subjects. Pop artist Andy Warhol used self-portraits to explore notions of persona and artifice, to embrace the highly constructed and artificial nature of self, to play with both the exposure of light and the exposure of hidden identities. What does this self-compulsion to self-document mean for our sense of lived experience and memory? If a tree falls in the forest and no one posts it on Instagram, does it matter? Will we remember? Is this compulsion driven by narcissism, celebrity culture, reality TV? Or are we driven by a nagging fear of forgetting or being forgotten? We live our lives in double consciousness. We see through our eyes and through our camera lenses simultaneously. But is this really living? Do our device cameras remove us from our own experiences? Philosopher James Carse warned that by traveling with a camera, one automatically becomes a tourist, unable to truly inhabit new places and experiences. The Amish condemned self-portraits because they are considered prideful. And many native cultures are thought to believe that the camera can steal one's soul. Being captured on film can itself be considered a form of death, but it is also a form of immortality. In the tradition of memento mori, we see twin babies, one alive, one dead, a permanent reminder of what was, what could have been, and what remains. Famous people are the subjects of so many images. How does one choose which ones best sum up the lives and works of these great people? The director of Getty Images Archives chose this as one of the 2 last images of Robin Williams. To me, the choice seems influenced by the nature of Williams' death and the exposure of his battle with depression. David Bowie's career was an exquisite exploration of constructed persona. A gifted visual artist himself, he diligently controlled his brand for decades, from hair to costume to musical collaborators. In his dying days, he methodically cultivated his last images and final thoughts. Shortly before his death, he orchestrated a photo shoot for his final album. Elegant, dapper, and frail, he looks into the camera and literally laughs in the face of death. This act, along with the leaving behind of a farewell album, has critics and funeral planning services hailing him as the exemplar of dying well. When Mad Men's Betty Draper learned of her imminent death, she left no aspect of her memorialization to chance. She left detailed instructions and a photo to ensure that her body and her obituary presented her as she wished to be seen. Betty knew her brand and she protected it. You're probably wondering how I end up down this rabbit hole. 6 months after my father's death, I was asked to participate in a group memorial hosted by a local hospice organization. I agreed. They needed a photo for a slideshow. I freaked out, and I didn't submit one. As I drove to the event, I feared that my father's memorial slide would be nothing but this, image not found. As a designer, I choose and edit photos all the time, but this was different. I still wasn't ready to look at all those photos, let alone choose just one. Well, the PowerPoint was visually painful. It was a crime against all design principles. Photos were different sizes and shapes. Faces were pixelated. They say funerals are for the living, but I'm not so sure. Maybe Bowie and Betty were right. Funeral planning is a last opportunity for the dying to take control in the face of the uncontrollable. If I had picked an image, it might have been this one, had it been usable. It speaks to my unique loss, but it's just one moment, one relationship in a multifaceted life, 85 years long. His slide transitioned onto the screen, his name written in a foofy serif font that was likely meant to be warm yet formal. Under his name was a safe, non-religious glyph. I stared at the white space, filling it with random memories, thoughts, and feelings until the preset time passed and he was gone again. As I think back now on those sad pixelated photos, I wonder if they might make a strange kind of sense. After all, isn't this what loss looks like? The fading, growing distance that is part of grief. And then I came upon this last photo tradition, a composition that creates a space for our grief, that invites each of us to experience our own loss without ever trying to pretend that that space, that loss can be filled. Thank you.